I'm Jessica Schulte, and I'm going to talk about what is a clinical trial. A clinical trial is a research study, and it's intended to aid in the development of new medical treatments, diagnoses, and devices. There are multiple phases of human clinical trials, but we are going to kind of focus just on two that we see a lot with our MS studies and which ones we participate in. So first would be the phase 2 trials. They involve a small number of patients and are designed to primarily assess safety of a new medication. On the other hand, there's phase 3 trials. They involve a larger number of subjects, and they're designed to prove the effectiveness of a new medication as well as safety. So most of the clinical trials, almost all of them, always look at safety, but with phase 3, it's more effectiveness. So do we know they're safe in phase 2? Phase 3, okay, are they still safe, but are they effective? So what is a protocol? That is what we call like our Bible of a study. A protocol is a written description of the clinical trial, and it's provided by the trial sponsor. And some of the main things, like Dr. Green always says, the meat of the protocols include like a scientific background and the rationale for the study drug. There's also a detailed study objective. There could be multiple objectives, and the trial design and required participant assessments, which could be a laundry list of things for patients. What is a clinical trial sponsor? So a sponsor can be an organization, a person, commonly a pharmaceutical company, and they're responsible for initiating, overseeing, and the implementation of the trial and analyzing that data that we get during the trial. Participating in a clinical trial. So most clinical trials are from 12 to 24 months with the possibility of an extension. We have one study that's been going on for, 7 years now, but most of them are 12 to 24 months. The investigational drug is usually provided free of charge to the patient by the sponsor of the trial. Participating in a clinical trial requires significant dedication and time of the patient. I can't stress that. It's in communication between trial participants, the trial doctor, and the study coordinator, and the rest of the staff that's a part of the study is the key to conducting a successful and safe trial. Activities required prior to the enrollment in a clinical trial. This is for patients that are thinking about participating in a study. This would be like the starting point. Dr. Green or Dr. Rauschway would most likely approach a patient in the exam room, or the patient could hear about the clinical trial and think that this might be something that I would be interested in. The first thing we would do is give the patient the informed consent. It's an ongoing process. It's not just a document. The process is the trial doctor, their trained staff communicate with the potential trial participants about a clinical trial. The informed consent form is a document that provides all the important information about the study. The consent form probably ranges between 12 to 40 pages, and we try to put it in verbiage that a patient could actually understand and not be so scientific, and put it in more of a lay term. They try to make us put it at a third grade reading level, but that's nearly impossible when we talk about multiple sclerosis. So, in the informed consent, it allows the potential and current trial participants to decide whether or not to enroll / continuing to participate in the study, because multiple times throughout a study, it could feel like we reconsent you with something every single month. Every time you come in, they caught a little typo on page 7. We have to reconsent you with that 40-page consent form every time. But sometimes there's some very important things that happen or are discovered during the trial that really does necessitate or the need for us to sit there and actually go through if there's especially a change in the benefit or risk ratio. So, activities required prior to enrolling in a clinical trial. When I talked to Dr. Green about this, I was like, well, where do I start? First and foremost, the informed consent ensures The potential or current trial participants understand the risks and potential benefits of participating in a trial. Informed consent requires that a potential trial participant be made aware of all other available treatments. So we don't want patients to feel like, here's a good study we want you to be a part of and everything, but we have to make sure you know that there's other options available. The consent form also emphasizes that enrolling and staying in the trial is completely voluntary. You could have no reason whatsoever. You don't have to come to us and say, well, this is the reason why I don't want to be in it anymore. You have every right to withdraw from a study at any time. And that goes for your safety too. If Dr. Green or Dr. Rauschway feel that the study drug or whatever's being tested isn't good for you, and that you keep having disease progression, or you're declining in some fashion, or some of your labs are elevated or abnormal, we will pull you from the study for your safety. So that being said, you have the right to withdraw at any time. It's not like you signed it and you're in with a 30-year mortgage. So you've decided to enroll in the study, and you've signed that 40-page consent form. You've read it, your family's read it, you've asked questions, you've come in, Dr. Green has quizzed you about it, I've quizzed you about it, or Mary Kay has quizzed you about it to make sure that you're knowledgeable about participating in the study and that you have actually read it. So there's this thing called the screening visit. This visit is designed to ensure that all potential trial participants meet eligibility criteria. So in that protocol, we have this list of every single thing that you have to meet. We kind of purify the patients. It's called inclusion and exclusion criteria, and you have to meet all of those things, from lab work to your MS disease history, your prior treatments for your MS, or any other kind of medications that you've been on or currently on. So we go through all of that. During the visit, we do a lot of lab testings. You do physical exams, and I mean, we could go on forever. You're usually there for an entire day, at least one day, depending on the study that you're in. So these assessments also rule out underlying illnesses and conditions that may put you at an increased risk if you're treated with that investigational drug. That being said, throughout the study, and especially at the screening visit and at the end of treatment visit, these are a list of some of the things that are done. Not all of them are done for every study. They vary, but typically these are the things you're going to see, especially these first 5. There's a medical history and background. Your MS history is reviewed. Your MS treatment history is reviewed. Dr. Green or Dr. Rauschway do a physical exam. Then you do the neurologic exam. That can be done by Dr. Green, Dr. Rauschway, or Mary Kay. And that's usually the expanded disability status scale. That's our form of our neurologic exam. There's an ophthalmology exam, dermatology exam, pulmonary function testing, MRI of the brain and sometimes cord, OCT, chest x-ray, EKGs, patient surveys and questionnaires. You see a lot of the studies these days doing these patient surveys and questionnaires because, yes, do these drugs work? Yes, are they safe? But how is the patient's quality of life? How is it working for them on a day-to-day basis when it comes to walking, doing dishes, things like that from a patient's standpoint? Then there's lab testing, of course. Every single visit there is labs, and more labs. There's the biomarkers like Dr. Green was talking about earlier, and those are very, very important. And then there's some things we call sub-studies. So it's just these smaller studies that come off of the big studies that you don't have to participate in, even if you're participating in the main clinical trial. For DNA, RNA, I mean, we could go on forever about the different types, and they vary for every different study. So urinalysis, always done with lab testing. And most importantly for women of childbearing potential is the pregnancy test. You'll have one at every single visit, and you will also have sometimes have to take home pregnancy tests and then call the site and let us know that it's come back negative in order for us to refill that investigational drug. The timing of these assessments vary and may be required at each visit or only once a year. So some of our visits, I mean, the protocol defines when you're supposed to come in. If it's every 28 days or every 35 days, every 45 days, and you usually only have a 3-day window up to a 5-day or 7-day window. So that can be difficult for patients that work full-time or have just difficulty getting into the center. It's difficult to work in with Dr. Green and Mary Kay and all these other doctors that are involved, or other off-site locations like MRIs. So once again, it comes back to communication between the study coordinator, the PI, and the patient. Okay, so common reasons why patients don't participate in clinical trials. Patients are not knowledgeable about clinical trials. The community awareness about the availability and importance of clinical trials is lacking. Most importantly, patients fear being treated like a guinea pig, quote unquote. But trial participants are not treated like guinea pigs. They are treated with dignity, respect, and the utmost care. Legal regulations are in place to protect the well-being of the patients and the rights of the trial patients. Most of our patients that are currently in studies have 24-hour access to us. They have Dr. Green's personal cell phone number, they have my personal cell phone number, all hours of the day. Patients are fearful of the unknown side effects or toxicities from investigational treatment for their MS. Trial investigator is responsible for ensuring that the safety of the trial participants. At any time during a trial, the trial doctor can and will discontinue a trial patient from the trial if he or she feels that it is in the best interest of the patient. The participant can withdraw from the trial at any time and for any reason, like I had mentioned earlier. Okay, so why do patients actually participate in trials? Dr. Green and I surveyed patients currently participating in our clinical trials and asked them why. Why did you decide to participate in a clinical trial? These were some of their reasons. We tried to pick out some of the most common ones because we got plenty of reasons why they did it. But number one is it enables me to help others with MS. Participating provides me access to the drug being studied prior to it becoming readily available and marketed. I want to play a role in discovering and developing better MS treatments. This trial gives me access to free examinations and testing. This allows me to play a more active role in my MS care. If I was not in the trial, my MS would be untreated. We see this a lot. This is because I didn't tolerate the currently available MS treatments. Why do we do clinical trials? Why does the MS Center participate in clinical trials? We do this because we want to make sure that we're able to provide our patients with cutting-edge MS treatments that are not yet approved or marketed. We're able to play a crucial role in the advancement of MS therapies and care. So these are the 3 clinical trials that we're participating in that are open to enrollment for new patients. We also have a couple more in the works, but the first one is ASSESS. They have all these beautiful names for them. It's hard to keep track of sometimes. The ASSESS study is comparing the safety and efficacy of 0.25 milligram fingolimod to the current marketed dose, 0.5 milligrams Gilenya, and Copaxone. The ENHANCE study is a placebo-controlled study assessing the long-term efficacy and safety of prolonged-release famotidine, also known as Ampyra, and it's 10 milligrams twice a day. And then we have the ARPEGGIO study, which is a primary progressive MS study, the first time we've ever done a primary progressive study. And it's evaluating the efficacy, safety, and tolerability of oral 0.6 and 1.5 milligram laquinimod, which Dr. Green had spoken about earlier. All right, I made it through it. Thank you.